The assembly hall on Centauri Prime could hold representatives from 100 different worlds. Today it felt empty, despite being full. Ambassador Daniel Harper stood at the speaker's podium, looking up at the circular rows of seats where the most powerful beings in the galaxy sat in judgment. He had practiced this speech for months. Every word was carefully chosen. Every argument was backed by data and evidence. Earth's petition for full council membership was reasonable, fair, and long overdue. Humanity had been part of the Galactic Council for 23 years. They had contributed medical advances that saved millions of lives across dozens of species. Their engineers had helped build stations and repair damaged infrastructure. Their peacekeepers had served in conflict zones that other species avoided. Daniel believed the petition would pass. He was wrong. The Valorian High Commander Zekthar was the first to respond. The massive reptilian creature stood nearly 8 feet tall, his scales gleaming under the chamber lights. His laugh echoed through the hall like rocks grinding together. "The humans want voting rights?" Zekthar's voice boomed. "These primitive apes who barely learned to leave their mudball planet? They think they deserve to sit as equals with species who have ruled the stars for thousands of years?" Nervous laughter rippled through the assembly. Daniel felt his face grow hot, but he kept his expression neutral. Beside him, Commander Lisa Grant tensed, her hand instinctively moving toward where her sidearm would be if weapons were allowed in the chamber. On his other side, Philip Stone, Earth's chief negotiator, placed a steadying hand on the podium. The Keleth representative spoke next. The insectoid creature's multiple eyes glittered as its mandibles clicked together in what passed for speech among its species. The translation came through cold and dismissive. "Human trade proposals are worthless. Your world produces nothing we cannot obtain elsewhere for better prices. Why should we grant privileges to a backwater species with nothing to offer?" Daniel tried to respond, tried to present the economic data showing Earth's growing trade significance, but his microphone cut off. The technical staff, controlled by council officials, had silenced him. Then the Archon Elder spoke. The being was pure energy contained in a vaguely humanoid form, shifting colors that hurt to look at directly. Its voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. "Intellectually inferior children playing at civilization. Perhaps in another 1,000 years humans will develop the capacity for true understanding. Until then, they should be grateful we allow them to exist in our galaxy at all." The vote came swiftly. Unanimous denial of Earth's petition. But worse was coming. The Keleth representative proposed new restrictions. Human ships would be confined to their home system and only 3 neighboring colonies. All other human vessels in council space had 30 days to return home or be impounded. Trade tariffs on all Earth goods would increase by 40%. The Valorian added the final insult. Humanity would pay annual protection fees to the Valorian military fleet. The amount was staggering, equivalent to 15% of Earth's total economic output. The stated reason was to cover the cost of protecting human space from pirates and raiders. Everyone knew it was tribute, plain and simple. Daniel's microphone remained off. He couldn't even protest. The council voted on the new restrictions quickly, passing them with barely any discussion. Humanity's status had just been downgraded from junior member to something closer to a vassal state. As the session ended, Daniel and his team walked toward the exit. They moved in stunned silence, trying to process what had just happened. The hallway outside the chamber was crowded with representatives from other species, many of whom had voted to humiliate humanity just minutes before. A Valorian guard stepped in front of Philip, blocking his path. "Move faster, human, you are slow." Philip tried to step around him, but the guard shoved him hard. Philip stumbled and nearly fell. Lisa moved to help him, and another guard grabbed, her arm roughly squeezing hard enough to leave bruises. "Touch a Valorian again and you will regret it," the guard hissed. Daniel wanted to fight back, wanted to do something, but they were unarmed and surrounded. Starting a physical confrontation here would only make things worse. He helped Philip to his feet and led his team away as quickly as possible while maintaining some dignity. The walk back to their ship, the ESS Endeavor, felt like it took hours. None of them spoke. What was there to say? They had gone to Centauri Prime believing in diplomacy, in the power of reason and evidence. They had been treated like nothing, less than nothing. Once aboard the Endeavour and safely away from the station, Lisa finally exploded. We can't let them do this. They assaulted a member of an official diplomatic team. That's an act of war by any reasonable standard. We're not at war, Daniel said quietly. He sat in his quarters staring at the wall. We don't have the power to be at war with the Council. They have thousands of ships, hundreds of worlds. We have Earth and a handful of colonies. Philip was holding ice to his shoulder where the guard had shoved him. So what do we do? Just accept this? Pay their tribute and lock ourselves in our own system? I don't know, Daniel admitted. I really don't know. The journey back to Earth took 2 weeks. Daniel spent most of it writing his report, trying to capture not just what had happened but how it had felt. The casual cruelty, the arrogant dismissal, the physical violence treated as a joke. When they finally reached Earth and docked at the orbital station above Geneva, Daniel was met by Fleet Admiral Marcus Webb. The military commander was in his 60s, gray-haired but still sharp-eyed and strong. He listened to Daniel's verbal report without interrupting, his expression growing harder with each detail. They shoved Philip and grabbed Lisa? Marcus asked, in front of other representatives. No one said anything. No one cared. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something that surprised Daniel. I've been expecting this. Expecting what? Expecting diplomacy to fail. We've been trying the peaceful route for 23 years, Daniel. Every year they push us a little more. Every year they take a little more. I've been preparing for the day when we'd have to push back. Daniel felt a chill run down his spine. Marcus, what are you saying? I'm saying it's time to brief the civilian leadership. It's time to show them what we've been building. Marcus stood and headed toward the door. Come with me. You need to see this before we present it to the Secretary General. They took a shuttle down to Earth's surface, to the military command center buried deep beneath Geneva. Marcus led Daniel through security checkpoints and encrypted doors until they reached a command center filled with holographic displays. What is this? Daniel asked. Marcus pulled up a star chart. Red icons filled the display, scattered across multiple systems far from Earth. For the past 5 years, we've been building a fleet. Not in Earth orbit where Council observers could see it. Out in deep space in systems we claimed were just scientific outposts. We've been developing weapons, training crews, preparing for war. War, Daniel repeated. The word felt heavy. We hoped it wouldn't come to this. We really did. But we're not stupid, Daniel. We knew the Council would never treat us fairly, so we prepared. Marcus zoomed in on one of the red icons. This is the ESS Liberty, our first true battleship, built to human specifications with human technology. We have 270 ships ready to deploy, carriers, destroyers, frigates, and support vessels. Daniel stared at the display. Does the Secretary General know about this? She knows we have a defensive fleet. She doesn't know how big it is or how far we've advanced our weapons technology. That briefing happens tomorrow. Marcus looked at Daniel seriously. The question is whether she'll authorize us to use it. And if she doesn't, then we stay locked in our system and pay tribute to species who treat us like dirt for the rest of human history. Marcus's jaw tightened. Or until they decide we're not even worth exploiting anymore and wipe us out completely. That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. He kept seeing Zekthar's mocking laugh, hearing the Archon's casual dismissal of humanity as intellectually inferior children. He thought about Philip being shoved, Lisa being grabbed, and no one caring. He thought about his daughter back on Earth just starting university. What kind of galaxy would she grow up in? One where humans were always second-class citizens? Where they had to bow and scrape to species who viewed them as barely worthy of existence? Or one where humanity stood up and demanded the respect they deserved? The briefing with Secretary General Helen Cross happened the next morning. Daniel was there along with Marcus, General Patricia Coleman, and Director Vincent Hayes from Intelligence. Helen listened to everything, asked detailed questions, and finally sat back in her chair. So our options are, accept the Council's new restrictions and pay tribute, or go to war with the most powerful alliance in the galaxy. Those are the options, Marcus confirmed. We'd be outnumbered at least 10-1. Yes. But you think we can win? Marcus chose his words carefully. I think we can hurt them badly enough that they'll negotiate seriously instead of treating us like primitives. I think we can prove that humanity isn't weak just because we prefer peace. Helen looked at Daniel. You're the diplomat. What do you think? The declaration of war went out on every communication channel humanity could access. Fleet Admiral Marcus Webb recorded it himself from the bridge of the ESS Liberty, humanity's flagship currently holding position in deep space just beyond Council sensor range. For 23 years, humanity has sought peace and partnership with the species of the Galactic Council. We have contributed our knowledge, our labor, and our lives to building a better galaxy. We have asked only for basic respect and fair treatment in return. Instead, we have been exploited, restricted, and humiliated. We have been called primitives and children. We have been physically assaulted by your guards while your leaders laughed. We have been forced to pay tribute for the privilege of existing. This ends now. As of this moment, Earth and all her colonies consider ourselves at war with the Galactic Council's authority. We do not seek conquest. We seek only what should have been granted freely: respect, equality, and the right to travel the stars without restriction. You have forced this war. We will finish it. The message reached Centauri Prime in the middle of their day cycle. High Commander Zekthar was in a strategic planning session when his aide interrupted with the news. The Valorian leader listened to the recording once, then laughed so hard his scales rattled. The humans declare war? On us? He looked around at his command staff. What will they fight us with? Their merchant ships? Their tiny patrol boats? We have the largest military in the galaxy. His chief strategist, a younger Valorian named Krelvak, pulled up tactical displays. Our intelligence shows humans have perhaps 50 combat-capable vessels. We have over 4,000 warships in active service with another 2,000 in reserve. Then this war will last approximately 1 day, Zekthar said dismissively. Send the Third Fleet to their nearest colony. Destroy whatever pathetic defense force they have. Bombard the colony from orbit as a lesson. The humans will surrender within a week. But the intelligence was wrong. Badly wrong. The Council had no idea what humanity had been building in the deep dark between the stars. Commander Lisa Grant stood on the bridge of the ESS Defiance, a heavy cruiser that had never appeared on any official registry. Around her ship, 29 others held formation. All of them were fresh from the secret shipyards, all of them equipped with weapons the Council had never seen. All ships report ready, Commander, her tactical officer reported. Lieutenant Jerry Ross had been training for this moment for 3 years. He looked excited and terrified in equal measure. Target is Epsilon Station, Lisa said, studying the tactical display. Valorian military outpost, garrison of approximately 5,000 troops. Defense grid of automated weapons platforms. Intelligence says they're not expecting trouble. They're about to get some, her weapons officer muttered. Epsilon Station sat at the border between Council space and the outer territories. It was a monitoring post watching for pirates and raiders. The Valorian commander there, General Kresh, ran a relaxed operation. Nothing exciting ever happened at Epsilon. That changed when his sensors picked up 30 unidentified contacts emerging from faster-than-light travel. What are those? Kresh demanded, staring at the display. The ships were smaller than Valorian battleships, but their design was unfamiliar. Are they pirates? His sensor operator ran the identification protocols. No match in the database, General. They're broadcasting human identification codes. Humans? Kresh laughed. The humans are attacking us. With what, mining ships? General, those are warships. And they're targeting our defense platforms. The first salvo from the human fleet was unlike anything the Valorians had seen. Instead of energy beams or plasma torpedoes, the human ships launched solid projectiles. Railgun rounds accelerated to incredible speeds, hitting with kinetic force that tore through defense platforms like paper. Return fire, Kresh ordered. The station's weapons opened up, energy beams lancing out toward the human ships. But the human vessels were fast, unnaturally fast. They dodged and weaved, their smaller size and superior engines making them hard targets. Then came the missiles. Hundreds of them. Launched from every human ship, they swarmed the station like angry insects, overwhelming the automated defense systems through sheer numbers. Explosions blossomed across the station's hull. Deploy the defense fleet, Kresh shouted. Epsilon Station housed 20 Valorian warships. They launched quickly, moving to engage the human attackers. The space battle lasted 17 minutes. The Valorian ships were larger and more heavily armored, but they were built for a different kind of warfare. They expected to trade shots with enemy vessels at medium range, relying on their heavy shields and thick armor to absorb damage while dealing it back. The human ships didn't fight that way. They stayed at long range, using their railguns to strike from distances where Valorian energy weapons lost effectiveness. When the Valorian ships tried to close, the humans retreated, always staying just out of reach, peppering the enemy with missiles and kinetic rounds. It was frustrating, infuriating, and devastatingly effective. One by one, Valorian ships lost weapons, lost shields, lost engines. They were disabled, not destroyed, left floating in space with dead power systems and no way to maneuver. "Sir, we've lost all our defensive ships," Kresh's tactical officer reported. The young Valorian looked shocked. "They didn't destroy them. They just took them apart." Lisa watched the tactical display with satisfaction. "All Valorian military vessels neutralized. No human casualties. Prepare boarding teams. We're taking the station?" Jerry asked. "That's the mission. We're not barbarians. We're going to capture it properly." The boarding action was swift. Human Marines in combat armor breached the station at multiple points. They moved with precision, clearing rooms and corridors with tactics the Valorians hadn't seen before. They used stun weapons where possible, only using lethal force when fired upon. General Kresh was captured in his command center, along with his senior staff. They were restrained and brought before Lisa in the station's main hangar. Kresh looked up at the human commander with confusion and anger mixed together. "Why haven't you killed us?" Lisa removed her helmet. "Because we're not savages. You're prisoners of war. You'll be treated according to human military protocols. That means no torture, no execution, and medical care for anyone injured." "I don't understand," Kresh said. "We are defeated. In Council space, defeated enemies are killed or enslaved." "Well, we're not Council species, are we?" Lisa signaled to her medical officer, Captain George Palmer. "Doc, check them over. Treat any injuries." "You're actually going to help us?" Kresh seemed unable to process this. "We're at war with your government and its policies, General. Not with you personally. You were following orders. There's no honor in punishing soldiers for doing their duty." Lisa looked at the captured Valorians. "You'll be held in humane conditions. You'll be fed properly. You'll be allowed to communicate with your families. And when this war is over, you'll be returned home." One of the younger Valorian officers spoke up. "But we attacked you. We called you primitives. We laughed at your declaration of war." "Yeah, you did," Lisa agreed. "And now you know better. Maybe you'll go home and tell your people that humans aren't the barbarians you thought we were. Maybe you'll think twice before dismissing another species as primitive." News of Epsilon Station's capture spread through Council space like wildfire. The Kelith were shocked that humans had actually attacked a military target. The Archons were intrigued by the tactics and technology displayed. And the Valorians were angry, humiliated, and demanding revenge. High Commander Zekthar watched the tactical recordings of the battle. He watched it 3 times, studying every move the human ships made. His chief strategist Krelvak stood beside him, equally focused on the display. "Their ships are fast," Krelvak observed. "Faster than ours. And those weapons. Kinetic projectiles and swarm missiles. Nothing we can't handle but unusual." "More than unusual," Zekthar growled. "Effective. They took Epsilon Station in less than 20 minutes and we lost 20 ships without destroying a single human vessel. They got lucky." "Lucky?" Zekthar's scales flared. "You think this was luck? Look at their formations. Look at how they moved. They knew exactly what they were doing. They studied our tactics and built a fleet specifically designed to counter them." He stood up, his full height making him tower over everyone else in the room. "The humans have been planning this for years. While we laughed at them, they were preparing. While we called them primitives, they were building warships. We underestimated them." "What are your orders, High Commander?" Zekthar's jaw tightened. "Mobilize the 3rd Fleet, all 150 ships. Send them to New Terra, the humans' largest colony. Destroy their defenses, bombard the planet, and force them to surrender. Show them the cost of challenging Valorian authority. And the prisoners at Epsilon Station? The humans can keep them. We don't negotiate with rebels." Zekthar pulled up a star map. "But we will teach these apes that declaring war on the Council was the worst mistake their species ever made." Back on Earth, In the command center beneath Geneva, Marcus watched the reports coming in from Epsilon Station. The first battle was a complete success. 0 human casualties, enemy base captured, prisoners taken safely. The Valorian Third Fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the new Terra system, like an approaching storm. 150 warships ranging from massive battleships to swift destroyers, all painted in the crimson and black colors of Valorian military authority. Admiral Treshikar commanded the fleet from his flagship, the dominant Fang. He was a veteran of 30 campaigns, a warrior who had earned his position through countless battles. He looked at the tactical display showing New Terra's orbital space and smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. Human defense fleet detected, his sensor officer reported. 40 ships, various classes. They're forming defensive positions around the planet. 40 against 150, Treshikar mused. The humans must be desperate or stupid. Probably both. He opened fleet-wide communications. All ships, this is Admiral Treshikar. We will sweep aside their pathetic defense force, then bombard population centers until they surrender. High Commander Zekthar wants the humans humiliated. We will not disappoint him. Captain Ryan Mitchell watched the Valorian fleet approach on his tactical display. 40 ships to defend against 150. The numbers were brutal, but Ryan had spent his entire adult life in the military, and he'd learned that wars weren't won by whoever had the most ships. They were won by whoever thought faster and fought smarter. All ships, this is Mitchell. Stay in your assigned formations. Don't engage until they're fully committed to their attack run. Let them think we're going to fight the way they expect. His second-in-command, Lieutenant Commander Betty Shaw, looked worried. Captain, if we let them get that close, they could tear us apart. Only if we're still there when they arrive, Ryan said with a slight smile. Trust the plan, Betty. We've trained for this. The Valorian fleet advanced in a traditional council military formation. Heavy battleships in the center, smaller ships on the flanks, perfect for overwhelming an enemy through superior firepower. It was a formation that had won battles for 1,000 years. It was also predictable. Ryan waited until the Valorians were 10 minutes from weapons range. Then he gave the order. All ships execute Delta formation. Split by squadrons and engage at assigned vectors. The human fleet suddenly broke apart. The 40 ships scattered in multiple directions, moving far faster than the Valorians expected. They didn't retreat in panic. They moved with precision, each squadron heading to predetermined positions. What are they doing? Treshikar demanded, watching the human ships divide and scatter. Are they fleeing? No, sir, his tactical officer said slowly. They're repositioning. They've split into 8 squadron groups, 5 ships each. They're surrounding us. Impossible. 40 ships cannot surround 150. They're not surrounding the fleet, Admiral. They're positioning to attack specific ships from multiple angles. Treshikar suddenly understood, but by then it was too late. The human squadrons had positioned themselves around his fleet, not close enough to be easily targeted, but close enough to strike with their long-range weapons. The first salvo came from Ryan's squadron. Railgun rounds hammered into a Valorian battleship's engines from behind, where the armor was thinner. The massive ship shuddered, its thrust systems failing. Then another squadron hit a different battleship from a different angle. Then another. The human ships weren't trying to fight the entire Valorian fleet at once. They were picking off individual ships, hitting them from multiple directions, overwhelming local defenses before moving to the next target. Return fire, Treshikar ordered. All ships engage. But the Valorian ships were designed for formation combat, supporting each other with overlapping fields of fire. Scattered as they now were, with human squadrons darting between them, they couldn't use their superior numbers effectively. Friendly fire became a real concern as ships tried to target fast-moving human vessels that kept appearing and disappearing behind Valorian ships. Ryan watched the battle unfold on his tactical display with grim satisfaction. Alpha Squadron, target that cruiser's weapons array. Charlie Squadron, take out that destroyer's sensors. Golf Squadron, protect Echo while they reload. The battle became a deadly dance. Human ships would strike hard and fast, then retreat before the Valorians could concentrate fire on them. They used their speed and maneuverability to stay one step ahead, always attacking from unexpected angles. Lieutenant Sam Patterson, Ryan's weapons officer, called out, "Direct hit on target 7. Enemy battleship's main weapons offline. Good, move to target 8. Betty, how are our casualties?" 2 ships damaged, 1 severely. No losses yet, Betty reported. Yet being the key word. The Valorians were adapting. Admiral Treshikar was a skilled commander, and he quickly began reorganizing his fleet into smaller, more flexible groups that could respond to the human tactics. "They're learning," Ryan muttered. "We need to change the game again." He studied the tactical display, looking for advantages. Then he saw it. "All squadrons, new orders. We're going to push them toward the asteroid field at coordinates 379. "Sir, that puts our backs to the field too," Betty warned. "I know, but we know how to fight in an asteroid field. I'm betting they don't practice that kind of combat." The human squadrons began a fighting retreat, drawing the Valorian fleet after them. It looked like the humans were being pushed back, forced to fall back under superior firepower. The Valorians pursued eagerly, sensing victory. Then they entered the asteroid field. The human ships slipped between the tumbling rocks like they were dancing, using the asteroids for cover, appearing and disappearing in the chaos of spinning stone and ice. They'd trained in fields like this, practiced until they could navigate them instinctively. The Valorians hadn't. Their larger ships couldn't maneuver as quickly. They had to slow down to avoid collisions. Their targeting systems struggled to track human ships that kept ducking behind asteroids. Ryan's squadron used the field ruthlessly. They'd fire from behind one asteroid, then zip behind another before return fire could hit them. They led Valorian ships into dead ends where they had to stop and reverse course. They even used the asteroids themselves as weapons, using precisely aimed railgun rounds to shatter asteroids and send debris. Showering into Valorian shields, Admiral Treshkar watched in growing frustration as his fleet became scattered and disorganized. In the asteroid field, ships were colliding with rocks. Formation integrity was falling apart, and those damned human ships kept striking from nowhere and vanishing before he could retaliate. "Pull the fleet back," he finally ordered. "Reform outside the asteroid field." But retreating from the field while under attack proved difficult. 3 Valorian ships were destroyed when they collided with asteroids while trying to evade human fire. 5 more were disabled. Their engines or weapons shot out by opportunistic human strikes. The battle had been going for 8 hours when Treshkar finally got his fleet reorganized outside the asteroid field. He'd lost or disabled 70 ships, 70 out of 150, against 40 human vessels. Ryan's fleet hadn't escaped unscathed. 5 ships destroyed, 12 badly damaged. But they'd held. Against nearly 4 times their numbers they'd held. "Admiral, we should retreat," Treshkar's tactical officer advised. "We can't win this engagement. The humans are too fast, too unpredictable." Treshkar's pride warred with his tactical sense. Retreat meant admitting defeat. But losing the entire fleet meant even worse humiliation. He made his decision. "All ships withdraw from New Terra space. We'll return to Council territory and request reinforcements." As the Valorian fleet began its retreat, Ryan opened a broadcast channel directed at the fleeing ships. "Admiral Treshikar, this is Captain Mitchell of the New Terra Defense Force. You came here to punish us, to destroy our homes and force us to surrender. You failed. We don't want to destroy all your ships or kill all your people. We just want you to leave us alone. You can have your damaged vessels back. We'll even help repair them if you ask nicely. But if you come back here threatening our families, we won't be merciful next time. Go home, Admiral. Tell your leaders that humans can't be bullied." On the dominant Fangs Bridge, Treshkar listened to the message in silence. He'd lost 70 ships, 70, against an inferior force, because he'd underestimated them. Because he'd assumed they'd fight the way Council species fought. He'd learned better. The question was whether the rest of the Valorian military would learn before it was too late. Down on New Terra, 3 million colonists watched the orbital battle's conclusion on view screens and through telescopes. When the Valorian fleet retreated, the cheering could be heard across the planet. They'd been defended, protected, saved. Ryan stood on his ship's bridge, exhausted and wounded from where a console had exploded near him during the fighting. His crew looked equally battered. But they'd won. Betty approached him carefully. "Captain, we should probably get you to medical." "In a minute." Ryan looked at the tactical display, at the 5 markers showing where human ships had been destroyed, where crews had died defending their homes. "Make sure we recover all the escape pods, ours and theirs. Anyone who made it out alive gets rescued, I don't care what species they are. Even the Valorians, especially them. I want them to see how humans treat defeated enemies." The emergency session of the Galactic Council was called Just 3, days after news of the New Terra defeat reached Centauri Prime. The assembly hall buzzed with worried conversations, in a dozen different languages. For the first time in living memory, the council members looked uncertain. High Commander Zekthar stood at the Valorian podium, his scales darker than usual, a sign of agitation among his species. He did not look like a leader who had just lost a major battle. The human rebellion must be crushed, he declared, his voice echoing through the chamber, completely, utterly. We must commit every available ship to hunting down their fleet and destroying their colonies. If we show weakness now, every minor species will think they can challenge council authority. The Keleth first speaker clicked his mandibles nervously. The insectoid leader was surrounded by his merchant advisors, all of them looking at economic reports that made him deeply uncomfortable. With respect, High Commander, perhaps we should reconsider our approach. The humans have proven more capable than anticipated. The war is disrupting trade routes throughout the sector. My merchants are losing substantial profits. Perhaps negotiations? Negotiations? Zekthar's roar cut him off. You want to negotiate with rebels? With primitives who attacked our military installations? I want to resume profitable trade, the first speaker replied coldly. War is expensive. The humans are interfering with shipping lanes. Several of our merchant vessels have been detained and searched by human warships. Not destroyed, mind you, detained. Searched for weapons and released. This is costing us money. A smaller species representative, a Thalas delegate named Speaker Vern, rose hesitantly. The Tholas were a minor council member, barely above humanity's former status. If I may speak, the humans sent us a message. They're offering trade agreements, partnerships, security cooperation. They say they're fighting against council tyranny, not against individual species. You would side with them? Zekthar turned his glare on Vern. I'm saying they're offering us better terms than the council has in centuries. No excessive tariffs, no protection fees. Equal partnership. Vern looked around nervously. Maybe they have a point about how the council operates. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the smaller species delegations. The Galactic Council had always been dominated by the three great powers, Valorians, Keleth, and Archons. Everyone else paid the costs and followed orders. If humanity was challenging that system, some species saw opportunity rather than threat. The Archon Elder's voice cut through the debate like a blade of cold light. The energy being floated above its podium, colors swirling in patterns that suggested deep thought. This conflict reveals concerning patterns. We have reviewed human combat data extensively. Their technological advancement is remarkable. Their tactical adaptation is unprecedented. Their ships, while fewer in number, demonstrate innovation we have not seen in council space for centuries. Perhaps we have grown complacent. Are you suggesting we should fear them? Zekthar demanded. We are suggesting caution. The Archons will not commit our vessels to this war until we better understand human capabilities. We remain neutral for now. The chamber exploded in argument. The Archons, one of the three great powers, withdrawing from the conflict. It was unthinkable. But the energy beings were adamant. They would observe, study, and analyze before committing to further action. The session ended with the council more divided than it had been in 1,000 years. Meanwhile, in human space, Fleet Admiral Marcus coordinated the war effort from his command center on Earth. The victory at New Terra had bought them time and credibility, but Marcus knew the real fight was just beginning. Commander Lisa Grant reported in via secure channel from her position near Valorian space. Admiral, we've successfully raided 3 supply convoys in the past week. Minimal resistance. We're not destroying the ships, just disabling them and taking their military cargo. Food and civilian supplies we're leaving alone. Good. We need to maintain the moral high ground here, Marcus replied. How are the crews handling extended deployment? Better than expected. Morale is high. Everyone knows what we're fighting for. Captain Ryan Mitchell appeared on another screen, joining the conference from New Terra. His face still showed bruises from the recent battle. Admiral, I've been in contact with representatives from 7 minor council species. They all want to know if our offer of alliance is genuine. It is, Marcus confirmed. The enemy is council tyranny, not the species who are trapped in the system. Ambassador Daniel is drafting partnership agreements as we speak. Equal terms, no exploitation, mutual defense. Everything we wish the council had offered us. General Patricia Coleman, Earth's chief strategist, pulled up star maps showing troop and fleet movements. We're fighting a smart war so far. Hit and run tactics, protecting our territory, disrupting their supply lines but avoiding civilian casualties. But Zekthar's going to escalate, he has to. His reputation depends on crushing us. Let him escalate, Marcus said calmly. We're ready. And every battle he loses makes more council species question whether the old system works. Director Vincent Hayes from Intelligence added his analysis. Our psychological warfare is working. We're broadcasting our principles across every channel we can access. Freedom, equality, fair treatment. It's resonating with oppressed species throughout council space. The Valorians look more like bullies every day. The strategy was deliberate. Humanity wasn't trying to conquer the galaxy. They were trying to break the council's moral authority, to prove that the system was corrupt and needed reform. Captain Julia Barnes led intelligence operations from her stealth ship, the ESS Shadow. Her mission was information gathering, and she was very good at her job. She'd spent weeks infiltrating council communication networks, listening to their internal debates, mapping their fleet movements. Admiral, I'm picking up increased chatter about dissent within Valorian Command, Julia reported. Some of their officers are questioning the war. They're calling it unwinnable, not because we're stronger, but because we're too adaptable. Every tactic they try, we counter. Every strategy they deploy, we neutralize. That's the advantage of being the underdog, Marcus mused. We have to be creative to survive. They've gotten used to just overwhelming problems with superior force. What about the Archons? They're scared even if they won't admit it. They've been analyzing our technology, and they can't figure out how we developed it so fast. 23 years ago, we barely had spaceflight. Now we're fielding weapons and ships that match or exceed their capabilities. It's threatening their identity as the intellectually superior species. Marcus allowed himself a small smile. Good, let them be scared. Fear breeds respect, and respect is what we've been asking for all along. On Centauri Prime, Ambassador Daniel worked the diplomatic channels with practiced skill. He met quietly with representatives from minor species, always in neutral locations, always with the same message: humanity wasn't the enemy. The system was the enemy. One such meeting was with the Drex ambassador, a species that looked like upright bears with 6 limbs. The Drex had been council members for 300 years but had never been granted full voting rights. You really mean it? The Drex ambassador asked. Equal partnership. No tribute payments? That's right, Daniel confirmed. We're building a coalition of species who want fair treatment. When this war is over, we want a new system, one where size and military power don't determine who gets a voice. The Valorians will never accept that. The Valorians don't get to decide anymore. Every species that joins us makes them weaker. Every battle they lose makes their authority less absolute. Daniel leaned forward. You've been paying protection fees for 3 centuries. How much of your species' wealth has been drained to fund Valorian military expansion? How many times have you asked for council help and been ignored because you're not powerful enough to matter? The Drex ambassador was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, What do you need from us? Within 2 months of the war's start, 12 minor species had signed partnership agreements with humanity. They didn't contribute military forces, not yet, but they provided intelligence, access to trade routes, and diplomatic support. The coalition was small but growing. The Keleth first speaker watched these developments with increasing concern. His species controlled most of galactic trade, and trade required stability. The war was creating instability. Human raids on Valorian supply lines were disrupting shipping schedules. The minor species were starting to trade directly with humans, bypassing Keleth merchants. He called a private meeting with his economic council. How much is this war costing us? The chief merchant, a shrewd Keleth named Trixall, presented figures that made even the first speaker's multiple eyes widen. 15% of our trade volume is gone. The war is scaring merchants away from conflict zones. The humans are offering trade deals to species we've had exclusive contracts with for decades. If this continues for another year, we could lose 20 or 30% of our economic power. Can we pressure the Valorians to end the war? Zekthar won't listen. His pride is wounded. He sees this as a military matter, not an economic one. The first speaker made a decision that would shock the council. Then, 3 months into the war, the Archon elders made a decision that would change everything. They had watched humanity's tactics, studied their technology, and analyzed their strategies. What they found disturbed them deeply. The Archons had always believed themselves to be the most intellectually advanced species in the galaxy. For 3,000 years, they had developed technologies that other species could barely comprehend. They were beings of pure energy, having evolved beyond physical form centuries ago. They saw other species as interesting but ultimately limited by their biological constraints. Humans challenged that belief, and the Archons couldn't allow that challenge to go unanswered. The Archon War Council convened in their crystalline citadel, a structure that existed partially in normal space and partially in dimensions that other species couldn't even perceive. Elder Synthesis, the leader of their military forces, addressed the council. The humans have proven more capable than anticipated. However, they have only faced conventional weapons. They have not encountered our advanced technologies. I propose we deploy quantum disruptors, consciousness weapons, and nanoswarm systems. These will prove that Archon superiority remains absolute. Elder Harmony, who preferred diplomatic solutions, flickered with concerned colors. These weapons have never been used against biological species in combat. The effects could be unpredictable. The effects will be devastating, Elder Synthesis replied, which is precisely the point. We must remind the galaxy why the Archons lead the Council in technological advancement. We must show these humans that their clever tactics mean nothing against true superiority. The vote was close, but Elder Synthesis's faction won. The Archon military would engage humanity with their most advanced weapons, not to conquer, but to humble, to remind everyone of the natural order of things. Captain Julia Barnes was on patrol in the Helix Nebula when her sensors picked up something unusual. Her ship, the ESS Shadow, was designed for stealth and reconnaissance, with the most advanced detection equipment humanity had built. Captain, I'm reading energy signatures that don't match any known council ship types. Her sensor officer, Lieutenant Chris Moore, reported. Julia studied the readings. They were strange, fluctuating between dimensions in ways that shouldn't be possible. How many contacts? 8 confirmed. Maybe more. They're hard to track, like they're only partially here. Archons. Julia felt ice in her stomach. The energy beings had stayed neutral so far. If they were entering the war now, it meant humanity had gotten their attention. All ships, battle stations. Transmit our position to Fleet Command. We might have a problem. The problem materialized, in the form of 8 Archon warships emerging from whatever higher dimension they traveled through. They were beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Crystalline structures that seemed to bend light around them, pulsing with energies that made human sensors scream warnings. Julia had 11 other ships with her, a small patrol fleet. Against 8 Archon vessels, that should have been reasonable odds, but she had a bad feeling about this engagement. Open channel, she ordered. Archon vessels, this is Captain Barnes of the human fleet. State your intentions. The response came in a voice that seemed to echo from multiple directions at once. Human vessel, you will stand down and surrender. Your species has challenged the Council's authority and disrupted galactic order. The Archons will now demonstrate why such challenges are futile. You may surrender or be destroyed. We've heard that before, Julia said grimly. Human fleet, evasive formations. Prepare to engage. The Archon ships attacked with weapons humanity had never encountered. The first strike was from a quantum disruptor, a beam of energy that didn't just damage the target ship, but seemed to make it cease existing. The ESS Ranger simply vanished, torn apart at the molecular level. What the hell was that? Julia shouted. It's breaking down atomic bonds, Chris said, his voice shaking. It's not destroying the ship. It's making the matter that comprises the ship stop being matter. 2 more human ships fired on the Archon vessel that had destroyed the Ranger, hitting it with railgun rounds and missiles. The projectiles simply passed through the Archon ship like it wasn't there, emerging on the other side and continuing into space. They're phasing between dimensions, Julia realized. They can become intangible to avoid our weapons. Then came the second type of attack. One of Julia's ships, the ESS Defender, suddenly went dark. Its engines stopped. Its weapons fell silent. But worse, the crew started screaming. Captain, I'm picking up distress calls from the Defender, her communications officer reported. The crew is saying they're hearing voices, seeing things that aren't there. They're describing it as their worst memories coming alive. Some of them are catatonic. Consciousness weapons, Julia whispered. The Archons could attack the mind directly. No armor could stop that. No shield could block it. A third Archon ship deployed something that looked like a silver mist. It spread toward the human fleet, and wherever it touched a ship's hull, the metal began to corrode and fall apart. Nanomachines, eating through the ship's structure at a molecular level. Julia's small fleet was being torn apart by weapons they couldn't counter. 3 ships destroyed in minutes, 2 more disabled by the consciousness weapons, 1 being eaten alive by nanomachines. Fall back, Julia ordered. All ships retreat to the nebula. We need cover, and we need to figure out how to fight this. Her remaining ships dove into the dense gases and stellar debris of the Helix Nebula. The environment disrupted sensors on both sides, buying them precious time. But Julia knew time was running out. If they couldn't find a way to counter these weapons, this battle was already lost. Think, she told herself. There has to be a weakness. Everything has a weakness. Her chief engineer, Brandon Cole, appeared on the comm screen from the engine room. He was a genius with technology, the kind of person who could look at alien equipment and figure out how it worked within hours. Captain, I've been analyzing the quantum disruptor readings. It operates on a specific frequency to disrupt atomic bonds. If we could recalibrate our shields to create interference patterns on that same frequency, would it work? Maybe. Probably not completely, but it might reduce the effectiveness. Give me 10 minutes. You've got 5. While Brandon worked on the quantum disruptor problem, Julia's medical officer, Dr. Laura Gibson, was studying the reports from the Defender's crew about the consciousness weapons. Captain, the weapon seems to target specific neural patterns associated with memory and fear centers. If I could develop a drug cocktail that temporarily alters brain chemistry, shifts the neural patterns just enough. Do it. How fast? I can synthesize something in minutes, but testing it properly would take weeks. We don't have weeks. We don't even have hours. Make your best guess and prepare injections for all crew. The human fleet's strength had always been adaptability. The ability to look at a problem, analyze it quickly, and develop solutions under pressure. Now that strength was being tested against the most advanced weapons in the galaxy. Petty Officer Kevin Torres, a young tech specialist, was studying the nanomachine attack patterns. Captain, the nanomachines are vulnerable to electromagnetic pulses, but our EMP weapons are designed to hit enemy ships, not our own. Can we modify them? If we dial down the intensity and use them in short bursts on our own hulls, we might be able to fry the nanomachines without completely shutting down our own systems. It'll be rough on our electronics, but better than being eaten alive. Do it. 5 minutes later, Brandon reported success. Sort of. Captain, I've recalibrated the shields. It's not perfect, and it's burning through power like crazy, but our tests show it should reduce quantum disruptor effectiveness by about 60%. Better than nothing. I'll take it. Transmit the shield configuration to all ships. Dr. Gibson had her drug cocktail ready. It's going to cause disorientation, headaches, maybe some nausea, but it should make the crew's neural patterns harder to target. Everyone needs an injection now. Julia felt the injection burn through her arm. Immediately her head started pounding and the room seemed to swim a bit. But her thoughts stayed clear. Good enough. All ships, new shield configuration online. All crew have received cognitive protection. EMP protocols ready for nanomachine defense. Let's go back out there and see if this works. The human fleet emerged from the nebula, weapons ready. The Archons, apparently surprised that the humans were returning instead of fleeing, fired again with their quantum disruptors. The beam hit the ESS Shadow. Julia felt the ship shudder and alarms screamed, but they didn't disintegrate. The shields held, barely, burning through power reserves at an alarming rate. But they held. It's working, Chris shouted. The shields are countering the quantum disruption. All ships focus fire on the lead Archon vessel. If they can phase between dimensions, let's see if they can do it while dodging hundreds of projectiles at once. The human fleet opened up with everything they had. Railguns, missiles, energy weapons, all concentrated on a single target. The Archon ship tried to phase, but with so many projectiles coming from so many angles, it couldn't avoid them all. Some passed through, but others hit. And when they did, they damaged the crystalline structure. The Archon vessel flickered and fell back. Damaged. Fleet Admiral Marcus stood in the command center beneath Geneva, staring at the holographic star map that dominated the room. Red markers showed Valorian military positions. Blue markers showed human fleet locations. Green markers showed the growing number of allied species who had joined humanity's cause. General Patricia Coleman stood beside him, her expression thoughtful. The Kelith have withdrawn. The Archons are neutral. Zekthar is isolated. This is our moment, Marcus. You want to go on the offensive. I want to end this war before it drags on for years, and there's only one way to do that convincingly. Patricia zoomed the map to show Centauri Prime, the shining jewel at the center of Council space. We hit them at their capital. We prove that nowhere is safe from human reach. We show the entire galaxy that the Council's authority is broken. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. An attack on Centauri Prime was bold, maybe too bold. The planet was the most heavily defended location in known space. Orbital defense platforms numbered in the thousands. Automated defense drones filled the system. And the Valorian home fleet, over 400 warships, guarded their capital like a shield. But Patricia was right about one thing. If humanity could threaten Centauri Prime itself, the psychological impact would be enormous. It would prove that the Council leadership wasn't untouchable. It might force negotiations and end the war. How many ships can we commit? Marcus asked. 270. That's everything we have that's combat ready. We'll be leaving our own territories lightly defended, but if this works, we won't need defenses anymore. And if it doesn't work? Then we lose most of our fleet and probably the war. Patricia met his eyes steadily. But doing nothing means this war grinds on indefinitely. Zekthar will keep sending fleets against us. More people will die, and eventually, either we'll wear down or they will. This is a chance to end it decisively. Marcus made his decision. Assemble the fleet. Captain Ryan commands from the Liberty. Commander Lisa takes the second battle group. Captain Julia handles intelligence and stealth operations. We move in 1 week. The order went out across human space. Every available warship began moving toward the secret assembly point in deep space. Crews said goodbye to families not knowing if they'd return. Engineers performed final checks on weapons and engines. Medical staff stocked up on supplies for the casualties they knew were coming. On the ESS Liberty, Captain Ryan Mitchell walked through his ship, talking to crew members, checking systems personally, preparing for the biggest battle of his life. The Liberty was humanity's flagship, a massive vessel bristling with weapons and carrying the hopes of an entire species. His second-in-command, Betty Shaw, found him in the hangar bay watching maintenance crews load missiles. Captain, we're getting volunteers from the allied species. The Drex are sending 2 ships. The Tholis are sending 3. Even some Kelith merchants have offered to join us as support vessels. Ryan smiled slightly. We're not alone anymore. That's good. Make sure they're integrated into our communication networks and understand our tactical signals. Commander Lisa Grant assembled her battle group on the ESS Defiance. She had 70 ships under her command, a mix of cruisers and destroyers. Her mission was to break through the outer defenses and create a corridor for the main fleet. She gathered her squadron commanders for a final briefing. This is going to be the hardest fight we've faced. The Valorians know we're coming, they have to. They'll have every defense active and every ship ready. Our job is to punch through their lines and keep them busy while the Liberty Group reaches the planet itself. How many casualties are we expecting? One of her commanders asked. Honestly? High, maybe very high. But if we succeed, we save thousands of lives that would be lost in a prolonged war. Sometimes you have to risk everything to win everything. Captain Julia Barnes had a different mission. Her stealth ships, 5 of them, would infiltrate Centauri Prime system ahead of the main fleet. Their job was intelligence gathering and sabotage. If they could disable even a fraction of the defense systems, it would make the main assault survivable. Julia selected her team carefully. Tech specialist Greg Foster, the man who'd helped counter the Archon quantum weapons. Combat expert Sergeant Nicole Pierce, a woman who'd served in every major battle of the war. And a dozen other specialists, all volunteers, all aware this was probably a one-way mission. We go in quiet, Julia briefed her team. We use captured Valorian access codes to infiltrate their defense network. We identify the most critical systems and disable them. We do not engage in direct combat unless absolutely necessary. Our goal is to make the main fleet's job easier, not to win glory. The human fleet assembled in a barren system 3 light-years from Centauri Prime. 270 human ships, plus 15 vessels from allied species, all preparing for battle. It was the largest military force humanity had ever assembled, and it was still outnumbered nearly 2-to-1 by the Valorian defenses. Fleet Admiral Marcus transmitted a message to every ship. In a few hours, we're going to attack the heart of Council power. Many of you will not return from this battle. I wish I could tell you otherwise, but I won't lie to you. This will be brutal. But it's also necessary. We're not just fighting for humanity anymore. We're fighting for every species that's been exploited and dismissed by Council arrogance. We're fighting to prove that power doesn't give anyone the right to dominate others. We're fighting for a better galaxy. Good luck to all of you. Marcus out. The fleet jumped to faster-than-light travel. The journey to Centauri Prime took 6 hours. During that time, crew members wrote final letters to families, checked their equipment one more time, or simply sat quietly with their thoughts. Julia's stealth group arrived first, dropping out of FTL travel at the edge of Centauri Prime's sensor range. They approached slowly, carefully, using every trick they knew to avoid detection. Greg Foster worked his technical magic, broadcasting false sensor readings that made the stealth ships look like asteroids or debris. It wasn't perfect, but it bought them time. They reached the outer defense grid 3 hours before the main fleet was due to arrive. Nicole Pierce led a boarding team onto one of the automated defense platforms. They moved through the unmanned station like ghosts, reaching the central control room. "I'm in," Greg reported, connecting to the station systems. "These platforms are networked. If I can access the command protocols, I might be able to disable a significant portion of the grid." "How significant?" Julia asked from the shadow. "Maybe 15%. That's hundreds of platforms. Do it." Greg's fingers flew across the alien interface. He'd studied Valorian systems for months, learning their programming languages, understanding their security. Now all that preparation paid off. One by one, defense platforms went dark, their weapons powering down, their shields dropping. 15% of the defense grid is offline, Greg reported. "They're going to notice soon, but we've bought the fleet some breathing room." The main human fleet arrived exactly on schedule. 270 ships dropped out of FTL travel and immediately came under fire from the remaining defense platforms in the Valorian home fleet. Ryan watched the tactical display light up with threats. It looked impossible. Red contacts everywhere, weapons fire filling space, alarms screaming warnings. But he'd trained for this. They all had. All ships execute breach formation. Lisa's group leads. We follow in their wake. Maintain point defense, watch for friendly fire, and keep moving forward no matter what. Lisa's battle group hit the Valorian lines like a hammer. Her 70 ships absorbed the initial fire, shields flaring under the assault. 3 ships were destroyed in the first minute. 5 more were badly damaged. But they kept pushing forward, creating a corridor through the defensive lines. "Keep firing. Clear us a path," Lisa ordered, even as her own ship shook from multiple hits. "We're not here to win a battle, we're here to open a door." The Valorian home fleet moved to intercept 400 warships against the human force. Admiral HFY, the Valorian commander, couldn't believe the humans were actually attacking Centauri Prime. It was insane. Suicidal, but they were doing it. "All ships, focus fire on the lead elements. Destroy them before they can penetrate further," HFY ordered. But the humans weren't fighting the way Valorians expected. They used every trick.